Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today, we're going to talk about slashing immigration and slashing U.S. aid abroad. There must be a plan, but what is it? Our guest for the show is Roopmati Khandekar, Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, our geopolitical analyst. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you for having me on your show. It's such a big topic that we discussed today. All my pleasure to discuss it with you.
Yeah, there's so much, it's like a fire hose. You can't keep up with it. Let's try. Trump has just begun. He is touching the tip of the iceberg, sinking the iceberg that could literally sink America. What is the long-term effect of these things we read in the paper every day that get worse every day? Are his rash decisions reversible? And the big question is, how do they affect America's position in the world? So, Roopmati, tell us what is happening here in Europe first, and then we'll talk about the Middle East. We'll talk about China, and we'll find anecdotal issues that have an effect on our foreign policy and on our foreign relations. Okay, let's start with Europe.
Jay, Trump has always put his entire policy as being America first. And so that makes Europe very, very low in the priority list. And so right now, when you see that on his first day in office, he announced that all foreign assistance to be evaluated as to whether it makes the US safer, stronger, and more prosperous. And so all aid is cut all over. So Europe becomes a big point because of Ukraine in it. And you see, for Ukraine, the funding is around 16.62 billion J. When he cuts off the aid to Ukraine, he makes Russia stronger. That makes Europe more vulnerable to Russian annexation, Russian dictatorship, Russian takeover of Europe is now becoming a close possibility. Nothing is impossible in this world today. And I think by weakening Ukraine, he's he's weakening the only hurdle that Europe has to come right at the doorstep of Europe. And we know another point for Europe is that he doesn't want to make NATO stronger. He does not believe in the security umbrella that US provides across the Atlantic towards the for just Europe for security. So weakening NATO, cutting off aid to Ukraine, all these points are going to make Europe very weak. And thirdly, a point that he has made immigration very tight in America. It's going to give the immigrants a direct target to get into Europe first. Forget America because of Trump. So immigration overload also is going to be the problem for Europe. So threefold problems, three-tier problems for Europe coming up. And Jay, for the Middle East, we know that you had rightly said that it's Egypt and Israel, the aid has not been cut off for. So they still receive military funding as allies. And when Jay, he cuts off aid to the Middle East, there is something known as $690 million dollars that are spent from the US for pro-democracy programs to counter authoritarian rule in 8 countries. Out of that, so many of them, like Iran, is such a nuisance in the Middle East, that is included. So, to tackle the authoritarian regimes, when this funding is cut off, it strengthens them again. So, Jay, it's a mixed hodgepodge. Israel stays an ally, but Iran, the funding for pro-democracy programs has been reduced. So, it's a big um, morale booster for Iran to see American politics in such a mess, because when you cut off such a vital category of US influence abroad in one shot, it is not possible. It has to be weighed in Each case has to be evaluated. There has to be a step by step, a tier by tier implementation. It cannot be in the swipe of a sword.
Well, I was thinking to kind of try to find out what his motivations are. We should look at the specific news items that he is engaged in. With Ukraine, he was impeached the first time for doing this kind of transactional thing. Zelensky, if you help me in the election, I will release the $400 million. Remember that one? Now he says, Zelensky, if you send me rare earth materials, I will give you money. It's the same thing. He's doing transactional on money that was already appropriated. Then you look at his arrangement with Viktor Orban. He likes Viktor Orban. There's all kinds of news reporting on how he's following Viktor Orban's playbook. And Elon Musk is out there, supporting neo-Nazi groups in Germany, opposing the government, embarrassing the government in UK, and other places around Europe. He's working against the interests of the United States all over Europe. And they called him now a quote special employee, whatever that is. But he has the support of Trump, and so people know that. And when they see Elon Musk doing things, these crazy things all over Europe, they say, that's Trump. So what we have here is an array of special crazy things. And if you look at it from the point of view of third parties, say, I don't know, other countries in Europe, France, Spain, what have you, then you start to get an idea of what they think of us by virtue of what we and Elon Musk, what Trump and Elon Musk are doing in Europe. And it's undeniable that they are thinking less of us because of what these guys are doing. Is that intentional, Roopmati, or is it just an accidental byproduct of the crazy things that Trump and Musk are doing?
Say the options are so close together. There's just maniac levels being surpassed day in day out, hour by hour. So you have something like this which has got no logic, no rational, and what are the repercussions of such a policy is not happening in any foreign policy that we see, in any national interest, foreign interest. You see, each decision is weighed in, and so many things are discussed as to what will be the implications. Here what is happening is just the policy is being taken, and let's see what happens. If it doesn't happen according to what we have, we do have threatening mechanisms. It doesn't work that way. Foreign policy is not that kind of when you have the monitor, like always I say, the American nation is at the helm of the international system, and as the hegemon it has responsibilities as well as the power. So the Spider-Man thing, great power comes with great responsibility. This is it. You can't wield power without any responsibility. This is doing exactly that. Now, in 2023, Jay, the US had disbursed $72 billion in foreign aid in 180 countries. So see this, see the span of influence that there is. And when you take decisions like this, and affecting so many areas in one sweep. And that also, if you see, when we always discuss that Zelensky is not an experienced politician, how experienced is Elon Musk as a politician? He's a good businessman. His father has had gold mines in South Africa. He comes from a rich, affluent background. He has increased his wealth quadruple times. But does it make his caliber in politics sustainable with decisions like this? He goes after. I told you remember our last program we discussed deep state. It's such an ambiguous term. They're using it. All these terms that they're using, they are umbrella terms. They get so many things under their spell, and by using these words, Jay, with the fear that it is, they sweep. They sweep across every department that we know of. And unapologetically, Jay. That's worse.
Other indicators, other issues and episodes also bear on this. For example, trying to buy Greenland, he hasn't stopped with that. Trying to take over the Panama Canal, um, getting into a trade war with no visible reason, really no
Mm,
visible reason, is certainly not going to improve American manufacturing at all.
mm,
And if you're worried about fentanyl, as Claudia Scheinbaum said, if you're worried about fentanyl, then stop it in the US. If you're worried about guns crossing the border, how about some gun control in the US? I mean, this is all a poppycock. And, these are these issues and steps that Trump is taking. They make people wonder about the judgment of the U.S. and the loyalty of the U.S. to its friends and allies. And you wonder what they think about us going forward. We cannot recover from the damage that has been done in the past 2 weeks for years and years and years. And then, of course, he's also sidled up to what's her name, Maloney, in Italy, who is a right wing type, and other right wing organizations in Europe. And my favorite one is that he's either put or threatened to put tariffs on, guess what? Taiwan, our friend, who we need to support, who we
mm,
need to support against China. He's
mm.
putting tariffs on chips from Taiwan. Is that crazy or what? So what is happening here is it's all wrong. Everything is wrong. And any observer around the world, in any country around the world, connects the dots and says, this is all wrong. What are they doing? They're tearing up the world. And to go to your point a moment ago, about what he's doing in the US, they look over the pond and they see him doing all these bizarre things, essentially dismantling the government, dismantling the United States is what he's doing. You connect the dots, that's what you get. And people are saying, wait a minute, that's not what we have been an ally for. We have seen the city on the hill. We have seen the United States as a global leader. This is not global leadership. This is the opposite of global leadership. And furthermore, we look to the United States for moral leadership. But what Trump is doing in the United States is destroying that, destroying that. So they say, well, not only is he attacking our relationship where we live, in Europe or, other places, the Pacific, but and Latin America, I might add, and Canada. Um, he's attacking the basic principles on which we have respected and allied ourselves with the U.S. since World War II in the U.S. So they got to be seeing all of these dots and connecting all of these dots and saying, this is not the U.S. that we can be friendly with. This is not the U.S. we can respect. This is not the U.S. we can plan a future with. That moral leadership, that de facto global leadership is gone, 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 gone. And the question I put to you is, when they all conclude that, and I suggest they are concluding that as we speak, what happens? I mean, the thing that comes to mind immediately is that when countries like China and possibly Russia move into the vacuum, that they take advantage of it. It's an opportunity for them. The Taiwan thing is obvious, but so is the Russian thing with his transactional arrangement to supporting Ukraine. So, what is going to happen when they lose all faith and confidence in the U.S.? And that's coming soon.
Jay, he's isolating the U.S. in such a way that in foreign policy we are going to become dictators. And what happens with a dictator that you obey or you follow till the point that it breaks you. After it breaks you, you rebel. And that is exactly what is going to happen within the first 2 days. When you put tariffs on Mexico, then you force them to set up the border, then they have a stop in Mexico policy. Everything is implemented, tariffs are stopped. Then you threaten the biggest trading partner with the US, Canada, with tariffs. Uh, they follow the instructions, and tariffs are delayed. So all these things, and like you said, the shocking thing about Taiwan also being taxed with tariffs. So when you want to have this monopoly in global trade, when everything is in dollars, and you want to dominate the world market with a dragon, China breathing down your neck for supremacy, you have to have accommodations day. And that was exactly the point that we discussed when we were discussing about the free trade America agreement, Latin America and uh, the mainland America, that when we had to have a free trade agreement, we had to let go of some democratic rules to accommodate, to adjust, not ignore them, or not ask them to not attend the meetings. It had to be a come together and accommodating, adjusting policy. That is what is lacking in Trump from the first 2 days, Jay. And it's a rush to start to continue what he had in his first term. And in that rush, Jay, there is such a mismatch of what, there's no continuity. It's exactly what Biden has done, to undo it in one sweep and then do what he wants uh, in another blow, which is messing around with everybody. Now see, when he has threatened BRICS with 100% tariff if they go ahead with the do away with the dollar program, so de-dollarization program. So 100% tariff, is it possible with Russia, China, India, the entire BRICS, South Africa? It's not possible, Jay. So many things are traded, so many things are moving. Can't isolate such a big country who is at the center of things. It has to be accommodating.
As you speak, I think of more and more things that are offensive to the world. I mean, for example, all this stuff about how unlawful aliens are being deported and they're criminals and rapists and what have you. That's not really true. And the countries to which they're being deported, the countries from which they came, must be saying to themselves, they're calling our people who are leaving to, for sanctuary, and he's effectively terminated sanctuary. They're leaving, and he's calling them names. It's got to be racist. So he's doing his racist thing on a global basis. So I guess I'm inevitably drawn to this question, which is a very hard question, is why? Why is he doing these horrendously destructive things day after day in increasing magnitude every single day? You read the paper and you lose your lunch. And the people in Europe, at least the right-thinking people in Europe, not the neo-Nazis, but the right-thinking people in Europe, are also losing their lunch, and they're probably worried. They were relying on the US to support NATO and the EU and the rule of law and all that, but this is going away. And so what you have is, as I said before, a lack of confidence going forward. And when you have that, things change. So is it not obvious to everyone what is happening here? And if it is not obvious, then why? Why is Trump doing this? He's got the wrecking ball going, both in this country and internationally. He's wrecking everything. Why would any American president do that?
J.C. Trump arrested 538 illegal immigrants on the first day, and he said it's promises made, promises kept. So it is his largest deportation operation in American history, which is going to impact 11 million undocumented migrants in the United States. Jay. So in the first day of office, when he signed the executive order declaring it a national emergency, put down troops in the southern border, and announced more troops and called them criminal aliens. Jay. He packed them, some of them, up in a plane in Mexico and sent them to Mexico. Mexico refused to take the plane. So kind of it is like, and today I think they were deported to Amritsar in India through warplanes, Jay. So if you refuse a warplane, you are declaring war on the country. So no choice for the country but to accept back the uh, people. So it's and they have another program known as Remain in Mexico. So also they've halted asylum for people who are coming in from the authoritarian regimes of Central and South America. So where do they go? Where is the humanitarian assistance? All right, no problem. But they talk of no mercy. They call them, there is no angle of a human touch, or even if you want them to go through documents, the way they're deporting is a very very uh, what do you say, aggressive nature, Jay. And when you do that, I told you it's going to affect Europe, because now they're all going to go to Europe. For any migrant who is wishing to go on his journey of settlement, he's going to move towards Europe, not look at the Statue of Liberty as a beacon of hope. So that's moving out. America is a land of migrants. So Vance declares that though it's a land of migrants, we don't want to have the most foolish immigration policy of allowing migrants to come in as and when. Okay, but now so many people are in. There is a system that we can use to put it in order. This is creating chaos and confusion, Jay. I have never ever seen any administration come up with so much of chaos and so much of uh, fear that is amongst every person, nation, neighbor, ally. Uh, it's all very hazy. Even Netanyahu today was kept waiting. I think he will wait a little longer for a meeting with Trump. So, who is Trump going to favor and who is he going to um uh, hurt? Is the big question there. And we don't know when, because he's unpredictable too.
Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy Jr. were both passed out of committee for a confirmation vote on the Senate floor, probably next week. And that is really a shockaroo. They're both not qualified, and Kash Patel is not far behind. He's probably going to have the same experience, and all three of them will be confirmed. On top of Egseth, that really brings down the government. If you look, for example, at Tulsi Gabbard, she is completely incompetent, unqualified to run the intelligence services. She is only going to make a mess, and that's very close to diplomatic relations, isn't it? And in the case of Kennedy, he's going to create outbreaks of childhood diseases and adult diseases too. And he's going to stand against vaccinations, and we're going to have another COVID or other, pandemic. And the problem is that all of these things are calculated to break America's back, in terms of intelligence, in terms of public health, and ultimately in terms of its economy. Because I don't think that anything that Trump has done, nothing since the inauguration, helps the economy. He hasn't done anything to, bring inflation under control, more under control. And every step he takes is for vengeance and to dismantle the government. I mean, he's really out of it. So what I get on this, and I talk to a lot of people about this question, is that it's ultimately going to affect our economy. We won't have the agricultural workers out there. Agriculture will fail in large part. You won't have food on the shelves in the grocery stores, although he promised otherwise. And you will have an economy and a stock market, both, that is on the decline. And this also has an effect, I think, on global relations. People have assumed that the American economy is the strongest in the world. Well, if it visibly declines, they're going to have a different view of the matter. And I guess the only question is whether they will know, because Trump is trying to undermine the media. He doesn't want, for example, the CDC to reveal the numbers about who's sick. He's probably going to put a hold on information from the legacy media, the mainstream media, about the status of the economy. But if these other countries, other people around the world get the idea that the American economy is on a decline, a serious decline, and that people are, for the lack of the social safety net, are starving and dying, which I think will happen if these guys are confirmed, and the likelihood is they will be confirmed, then what you have is a further lack of respect, a further lack of admiration for this economy that everybody has said is the best and strongest economy in the world. When that fails, it's a further statement of our failure as a country. And of course, that goes to what are the opportunist countries going to do? I suggest that the Belt Road from China will be much more active. They will be active everywhere that the U.S. has pulled out of, and Russia will take advantage too. On the other hand, there are some countries, thinking of Sudan, but there are many other countries in the same boat who used to get aid from us, whose people were at the brink of starvation and dying from disease, and we protected them and helped them. And if we stop U.S. aid, they're going to die, and there's going to be chaos and civil war beyond what we see now in Africa. And there's going to be a move to the right in Latin America. I mean, things are going to change if the U.S. goes over the side. Your thoughts about all of that?
So right, Jay. So right. When you talk of the economy being affected by this, Jay, you see the UAE, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, they attract the migrants to do the jobs. Uh, when you walk on the street, how many migrants are doing jobs for us, or how many migrants are doing work for us? If you remove this, who works then, Jay? There has to be, they could have bought in a reform which would have foolproofed the migrant system or immigration system to get in citizens inside America. The second sweeping thing that he did was that you are not entitled to birth right citizenship. Now, when the migrant comes in and when his child is born in the US, he automatically gets a affinity, a loyalty towards the country itself. He works harder for his child to have a good upbringing. The child gets educated in America. He becomes an American citizen. So all that is a cyclical process that takes place. Now, when you tell immigrants who have come from other countries, who have worked hard, got an education, and tried to get into America, that their children will not get birthright citizenship, citizenship by birth, they fall short, Jay. Why would they come here and spend their youth and their power to create work for a country which was never going to accept you? So even if the child has to go back, the entire family is uprooted. So all these things don't match up, Jay. And when you make this point rightly about other countries coming in to fill in the void which is going to be left by America, Russia keeps on offering that you come, and they have a policy for increasing the population. If you come and give birth in Russia, they offer massive amounts of money, employment, every kind of support that the government gives. Japan is on a decline. So, does America want to go on that route? It's a thriving economy because we have a good population. It can match up to China and India, which are the most populous countries in the world, because of this migrant population. Otherwise, how many people will walk on the streets of Chicago or New York, which are, it's filled with migrants? You don't find an American a long distance because everybody has come in and become American, isn't it? So it is always a melting pot.
Well, there's no reason why another country can't be a melting point. Let me just pick some. You mentioned Japan. It's a beautiful
Yes.
country. It's a
Yes.
democracy.
Mm.
And suppose at the Japanese Diet they decided we're going to be a melting pot. They haven't been a melting pot up to this point. They haven't encouraged immigration into Japan. But maybe they could. They should. They say, look, all you Latin American people, we're going to manage you. If you want to be migrants, you can come here, and we're going to give you a good life. This is what they do in Singapore. Singapore
Yes.
says, we don't have enough people. So we will allow 1 million people to come in and we will give them jobs on day one. We will give them homes on day one. And we will take money out of their pay to pay for the homes. And you get a very smooth transfer, and they become Singaporean in no time, and it's not a bad deal at all. Their 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 economics may not be as good as the place they came from, but their personal security is good, and their prospects are good. So Japan could do that, and any number of other countries could do that. The countries that are presumably democratic. And so, I mean, India is another example, if you will. India can say, our borders are open to migrants. We will take migrants. We will manage them. Merkel in Germany did a good job in bringing them in, but maybe not so much of a good job. Angela Merkel, maybe not so much of a good job in managing them. In other countries too, in Europe, they were so interested in accepting the migrants, maybe they forgot to manage them. But we learned, the world has learned about that. And maybe some of these countries will say, hey, we need population. We need to change the bell curve.
Mm.
We need to, have a stronger workforce and better educated people. So we will manage migrants. You come in, we'll take care of you. So I think, that would be something I would recommend to a number of countries, democratic countries, to do now. And maybe that would work. It would make the U.S. look pretty poor, as a matter of fact. But it would make these other countries look a lot better. There's a possibility. But let me make you the Secretary of State, because I think you could do a way better job than Marco Rubio, who's off, threatening Panama right now and other Nicaragua, I think, to try to get some kind of hegemony over Latin America, but not doing anything to improve our relations anywhere. But if you were the Secretary of State, first question is what Trump has done in the past couple of weeks reversible? Two is, if it is reversible, how long would it take to reverse it? Because it ain't going to be easy. And three is, what would you do if you had the power to reverse it?
They not reversible by a long mile. These decisions that are being made, because the repercussions are very very important right now. It's gotten so chaotic. The borders are sealed, all right. What about the people inside? They're going to be deported to countries. We don't know which country they're going to be. The countries have to accept them. And Jay, this kind of chaos that Trump has created is a different kind of chaos, because it's going to have migrants going to come, and they're not going to be able to get out of this entire rut that they're stuck in, because if a migrant is illegal, he can never ever come back to America. He has to go to another country that he's come going to choose here on. He cannot attempt to come back into America. He'll have to wait for the 4 years to finish and then attempt again, maybe through illegal borders. To one extent, Jay, he had to just streamline the process of migration, strengthen the borders, which he did in the first term, put up the uh, even the wall that he wanted to, but to streamline it and then vet with time. Not like this. We saw after the Moscow terror attack, Putin had lined up uh, Islamic people and just thrown them out of the airport. So because he's authoritarian, but we are in a democracy. There's a difference in what how you implement decisions. There has to be consideration of human rights, everything. All right, but national security, when you put it up, at this rate, crime is also going to be affected, because when you're throwing out the migrants, they leave behind these uh, people who want to avenge for them. You have something like this in Palestine, which troubles Israel day in and day out, that their brethren take their revenge, brethren take their vengeance. And when we have something like this, that when you throw out a migrant and his family stays back, they are going to be bitter. And bitter means crime, Jay. You're not going to have safe streets, you're not going to have safe um, livelihoods, economic policy which is very clean. So it makes a lot of difference. There's so many different repercussions. And when you talk about Angela Merkel allowing the migrants had a clear aim. They were gunning for going to the UK, United Kingdom, and she allowed them. And her policy was so um, uh, what do you say? It was not very uh, proper because she was asking them what age are they, and if a 40-year-old man said he's 14, he was written as 14 years old and allowed inside schools. So that's where the problem came. You have to have a proper medical uh, um, examination, a proper you can't take them on word of mouth. So it gave access, easy access. We couldn't have that in the American borders for sure. There was this TikTok video which was released by some Chinese uh, people, that how to cross the US border from different ways. That was being released. Agreed, that had to be stopped, but not in this way.
Yeah. Oh, you just reminded me there was a news story this morning about Google. Google had uh, a rule that it would not use its technology for weapons and to do
Mhm.
damage and to do harm, especially its AI technology. And it withdrew that promise today. So the whole role of social media has to be examined. But let me ask you this: if I'm in the U.S. and maybe I was a federal employee or an employee of a contractor for the federal government, and I was, or a school teacher, somebody who was affected by Trump's destructive moves, which will increase, and I don't have a job anymore, or putting it another way, I don't have any job security. Even if I can get my job back, I will never feel secure again, not during his administration, which may last a long time. You know, there's already a bill in Congress to uh, give him a third term. And of course, you know, maybe we have had a profound shift to the right in this country, and his successors will likewise do these destructive things. So if I've been forced out, if my job has been terminated, or I've been asked to resign or threatened or what have you from a federal position or a position which is subject to the federal changes that we have right now. One thought that has to come to mind is, what am I going to do? Because he's attacking Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and since Elon Musk has control of the Treasury, which issues all of the checks, you know, trillions of dollars of checks to recipients of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, you know, the social safety net. I I may not feel confident about having the government support me, even though I have paid into these funds all my life, all my working
Right.
life, and now I don't have any confidence. So I say to myself, I got to get out of here. I got to go to a place which is more humane, which is more responsible, which gives me security and a job, and isn't going to hurt me for no bloody reason. Um, and the question I put to you is, where is that? You know, if you go to Canada, a lot of people in Canada say, no, you Yanks, you know, we really don't want to be, you know, flooded with Yanks over here. Other people say, no, we'll always take, you know, Yanks. We are a very humane country and we're kind and gentle. And I prefer that, of course.
Mhm.
But it's not clear that there's a place for an American to go now, an American who has lost his confidence and maybe lost his livelihood, lost his retirement. Where does that person go and how does he get there? And am I right to assume there must be people who would like to do that?
You remember that 4-year-old cruise that they're offering trips to while away this presidency. So that was sold out, Jay. And I think people want to escape it to such an extent that they don't want to have. There is no surety, and there is no where the axe falls next, and to what extent is is so vague. You don't know exactly which decision is going to affect, because I used to think that Zelensky, due to his political inexperience, makes wrong decisions. But now we have a whole night table which is as inexperienced as it can get. It's every post, every position that is going to be thriving in promptness to please the master, because right now the decisions don't have logic and rationale. When you talk of cutting down the bureaucracy, a bureaucracy is the binding glue that goes through presidencies, Jay. There used to be we used to study in international relations that the US policy making always has a steady policy making for the next 25 years, that irrespective of the president who comes in and goes out, the US should remain at the top, and the policy should work in this way. At this rate, what is happening, Jay? The policy, we don't know which the trajectory is going. The narrative that is being set, the policies that are being implemented, it's a far fetched cry from the consistency level that we aim for progress. So that is sending shockwaves right across national boundaries as well as international uh, allies, foes, whatever it is. So we don't know. It has to still come. The foreign policy has to still come, because Trump has kept a policy that there has been no war that has taken place in his tenure. So he wants to keep his record clean, and he is very anti-Iran. That is for sure. Now nuclear sites of Iran, all these things will be taken care of. Israel will be protected, but the rest of it is going to be chaos.
You know, you make me think of the military. In the United States military, there's
Mm,
well more than 1 million people
mm,
subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And, you know, back in the day, there were lots of people in the military who were threatened by the draft back in the 60s and 70s, who left the country, who went to Canada, some of whom still live in Canada, and Canada accepted them. But they, in fact, were, you know, violating the law in the U.S., or they were deserters under the Uniform Code and of military justice. And so you really wonder what happens when Trump gives an illegal order, such as the order to shoot students at Kent State University, or shoot protesters who are protesting his policies. And if they leave, you know, it's a one-way trip. And the question is, where do they go to? And can he get them back? And a partial answer to that is, if they go to a country that's fed up with Trump, um, he has no power to extradite them back into the U.S. They
mm.
can't come back, but the country that they go to is not going to return them to the U.S. So I think, you know, of course, you know, there's a legal issue about whether the orders given to the members of the military by Trump and Hegseth are legal or not. But the other order is, what do you do when you're not willing to tolerate that? You know, you get on a bus and you get out of town, and you don't plan to come back. And I just wonder, you know, if is that a legitimate concern? Is that what's going to happen? And what do they do when they get there? It's the same question as my question about, you know, Japan accepting them, or India accepting them, or any number of other countries, Canada, Mexico, other countries in Europe. Seems to me that there'll be sanctuary countries here, and that sanctuary would include members of the armed forces. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, this point that you make is so valid, because this kind of outward movement of population is going to be so it's exodus that is going to happen, and that is going to hurt, because suddenly this dip in population when we are going, there is a kind of uh, consideration of the rate of immigration that is coming, illegal, legal, whatever it is. But when you just stop everything and also kill the American dream by not giving you birth citizenship by birth, and they also well settled individuals decide to leave the country, why would they spend their life over here rather than going to a European nation and getting set up over there? So they would also move. So you're going to have this outward trend which is going to happen, and most probably, if it doesn't go into that kind of a more bizarre, drastic state as Japan and Russia are in, with declining birth rates, this is going to hurt, like you had said, about the American economy. The military people, 1 million people at the in the military now are being deployed on borders. We have missions abroad, and missions abroad, Jay, are mostly to protect democracy. When Trump does not cater to this preserving democracy globally, when there's chaos outside your house, eventually one of them is going to come into your house and disturb your peace of mind. That's why when America pays for these democratic programs all over the world, it is to maintain a house in order or maybe the garden in order. So when that is missing, and when you have a chaotic situation at home, all these things, Jay, are going to add up to a kind of pullback effect on America's progress. But keeping America first and the nation first is always going to be important because, Jay, it is just not about anybody else. It has to be just about America. And under this guise, so many different things are happening, Jay. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. So my last question for you, Roopmati, as we're running out of time, is gee whiz, um, people want to have security, just as you say. And right now, their security is jeopardized, both on an individual level and on an institutional level and on a national level, national intelligence, for example. I mean, we are crippled in all of those areas if Trump has his way on all these things. So the question I put to you is, who's going to stop him? And more specifically, are the courts going to stop him? Is the judicial system in the United States going to stop him from undermining our personal, institutional, and international security, or not?
No, Jay, they will not be able to stop him because the courts are independent, acting arms, but uh, who accepts the decision also is important. We don't have that kind of a system right now. There is a un, you know, there's no interruption in power right now. It is absolutely an explosion of power. And in that, I don't think a court order or court restriction is going to be permanent. It's going to be temporarily halted and then started again. It is never going to be stopped for the sake of the courts because justice is not being served. I don't think that is the issue right now. Justice is a far fetched option for all right now, and courts are just the preservers of justice. So it's going to be all these orders being passed but ignored.
Yeah, and the courts don't move that quickly, do they?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there, Roopmati. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst at ThinkTech. Thank you so much, Roopmati. Always appreciate your thoughts and comments. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you very much.